What happened today around Trump has people on both sides of the Atlantic shaking their heads. Trump showed up at Davos, and instead of sounding like someone trying to unite allies or even sound presidential, he went full Trump. The vibe was chaotic, defensive, and honestly reckless. He wasn't there to build bridges. He was there to posture, to play tough, and to throw shade at the very allies who have stood shoulder to shoulder with the United States during some of the darkest moments in modern history. And here's the part that really lit the fuse. In his comments, Trump took a swing at NATO allies and specifically dismissed the sacrifices made by allied troops in Afghanistan. That's not just a political jab. That's a line that cuts straight through families, veterans, and entire nations who buried their sons and daughters after fighting alongside American forces. The reaction to that was immediate, and nowhere was it stronger than in the UK. What followed is honestly a textbook example of how bullies react when someone finally stands up to them. Before we get into the response, listen carefully to what Trump actually said, because this moment matters.
We've never needed them. We have never really asked anything of them. You know, they'll say they sent some troops to Afghanistan or this or that. And they did. They stayed a little back, a little off the front lines. But we've been very good to Europe and to many other countries. And, you know, now under my administration, that began because we had a very successful first term. That began then, but it has to be a two-way street.
That right there is classic Trump. A confident tone wrapped around a claim that simply falls apart the moment you check the facts. This is the same man who avoided military service himself, now casually brushing off the sacrifices of Allied soldiers who actually fought and died. He talks like an expert on warfare and alliances, but his track record shows someone who's always quick to criticize and slow to take responsibility. The intent was obvious. He wanted to look tough. He wanted to look dominant. And instead, he managed to insult some of America's closest allies. And the UK didn't waste time responding. Pressure quickly mounted for Labour leader Keir Starmer to say something, and when he did, his words carried the weight of a country that remembers every name on those memorials.
Let me start by paying tribute to the 457 of our armed services who lost their lives in Afghanistan. I will never forget their courage, their bravery, and the sacrifice that they made for their country. There are many also who were injured, some with life-changing injuries. And so I consider President Trump's remarks to be insulting and frankly appalling. And I'm not surprised they've caused such hurt to the loved ones of those who were killed or injured, and in fact, across the country.
Now, Starmer's response mattered, but it also showed the limits of political caution. The outrage was there. The respect for fallen soldiers was clear, but he stopped just short of directly demanding accountability. And that's where the story takes a turn, because the UK's Armed Forces Minister, Al Carnes, didn't hesitate at all. What he delivered wasn't loud or performative. It was calm, grounded, and devastating in its clarity. This is the kind of response that doesn't rely on insults or chest thumping. It relies on experience, real experience. And when you hear it, you understand immediately why it landed so hard.
So tracking some comments made that NATO troops stayed a little off the front lines in Afghanistan and that the US has never necessarily needed us. Well, it's a real shame to hear that. The only time NATO has ever enacted Article 5 was after the 9/11 terrorist attacks, when the United States and the world rallied to the support of the US. Our agencies, our forces, our politicians, we all stood together, shoulder to shoulder, and responded. On Afghanistan, frankly, this is utterly ridiculous. Many courageous and honourable service personnel from many nations fought on the front line. Many fought way beyond it. I'd served 5 tours in Afghanistan. Many alongside my American colleagues. We shed blood, sweat and tears together. And not everybody came home. These are bonds, I think, forged in fire, protecting US or shared interests, but actually protecting democracy overall. And I'd suggest whoever believes these comments, come have a whiskey with me, my colleagues, their families, and importantly, the families of those that have made the ultimate sacrifice for both of our nations. It's also worth reminding everyone here in World War II, more British troops landed on D-Day than any other nation. It was an allied response, and united we conquer. Now, some advice for anyone who may be listening. There are two great sayings worth remembering. Number one, there's only one worse thing than working with allies. That is working without them. And when you do, always remember, never above, never below, always side by side.
That's not bravado. That's credibility. Carnes didn't need to exaggerate or insult anyone. He spoke from lived experience, from shared sacrifice, and from history that's written in blood, not sound bites. This is what real strength looks like. It's quiet confidence. It's respect. It's understanding that alliances aren't about dominance, they're about trust. And that contrast is impossible to ignore. On one side, you have someone who talks tough, but has never stood in those boots or shared those risks. On the other, you have someone who's been there, who's fought alongside allies, and who understands that no country stands alone when democracy is under threat. That difference is exactly why Trump's comments backfired so badly. The UK's response wasn't about embarrassing Trump. It was about honoring the truth and defending the memory of those who paid the ultimate price. It was a reminder that NATO isn't some abstract idea or bargaining chip. It's people, it's families, it's shared history. And when someone tries to rewrite that history, the response can be swift and unforgiving. If you found this breakdown helpful, make sure to like the video and subscribe. We'll keep cutting through the noise and bringing you the moments that actually matter, the ones you won't always see highlighted elsewhere.